In my opinion, I believe the Desmarais family played a role in the backing of the 9/11 attacks. I also, as you know, believe in my opinion that the CSL group was behind the firing of the P-700 Granite missile, which took out the Office of Naval Intelligence and Operation Looking Glass based at the Pentagon. I believe one of the CSL group's vessels was adapted to fire the 2-ton supersonic cruise missiles stolen from the Kursk 141 amongst 21 others, partially for this attack. If you look, one of the pushers of the HIV fraud is Jesuit soldier Paul Desmarais, SJ, over in Africa. As we all should know by now, the virus hype is just that, as there is no such virus as an HIV, and even if there had been, then it would have been nothing to do with the so-called symptoms of AIDS. Remember that the origins of the HIV fraud goes back to Knight of Malta Robert Gallo, who was awarded the Sword of Ignatius Loyola Award by the Jesuits at St. Louis University. The Desmarais will have connections within the Worshipful Company of Mercers and the Worshipful Company of Fuelers, which control both the financial and energy sectors. The Fuelers also control the military and intelligentsia. The Mercers basically control everything, as they are the #1 original livery company, having ties to all, such as the education system and banking systems. They were the main banksters in the world a long time before the Livery brought about recently the Worshipful Company of International Bankers. If you remember, I told you about the Kennedy assassination being tied to the Coal Meters Committee, who ran the energy with the Mercers behind them. The teams to hit Kennedy came out of Montreal, Canada, and we're not seeing a connection here. The same with the assassination of Lincoln. Kennedy was whacked more for energy, whilst Lincoln was more for finance. Both were destroyed by the old Cardinal Wolsey's Hidden Star Chamber Continuum and the Privy Council, namely Privy Council members John Hobson and Roundell Palmer, respectively. If anyone is to be whacked, this is the command which decides if it's acceptable by law, and these are the ones who write up the documents and sign off on the death warrants for assassination and on wars and so forth. This is where Privy Councillor Peter Goldsmith would have signed off on the 9/11 attacks. As an example of this legal law requirement for these positions, if you now look at Peter Goldsmith, you'll see he now works at the #1 US law firm called D.B. Boyes and Plimpton LLP. This world is controlled through courts tied to the Inns of Court, which all these powerful hidden controllers stem from, and connected with the Bar Association, either into law or finance, at the very top, controlling everything else, including energy, which is the second most important of all. Keep your eyes on this Desmarais family in the future, as they are far more powerful than even the article linked would let you know. You do not have the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, King Juan Carlos, visit your mansion for no reason unless you have power or you're one of his puppets he needs and uses. This part of the article linked should have really given you a clue to their power. This family remind me of the hidden house of Keswick in Scotland, which many haven't heard of at all, but is basically your HSBC and Hong Kong connection, just like this Desmarais. Remember, the guy that started the connection with China was actually Knight of Malta Henry Luce. Then you had later Knight of Malta George Herbert Walker Bush, and of course this Paul Desmarais concluding the deals. The Worshipful Company of Mercers controlled China through the National Committee on US-China Relations, along with the Chinese People's Institute of Foreign Affairs, and finally the American-China Forum of the National Committee on US-China Relations. Don't be fooled by the upcoming Sino-Russian war with the US. It's all an illusion, with both sides being controlled by the Jesuits and their financiers, the Mercers. Russia is controlled by leadership trained by the College Russicum in Rome, whilst leadership of the US are trained at Georgetown University. Do a study of the true power of Karl Marcy, whose daughter-in-law, Christine Marcy, was trained at Georgetown University, and she basically controls the United States under the priesthood of her New Jerusalem bully boy, Senior Executive Service and the National Academy of Public Administration, remembering that the Jesuits utilised their crown bar to continue the British Empire by proxy for the Roman Empire. This empire uses the crown agents to control a lot of the finance and debt worldwide under the Worshipful Company of Mercers. Just take a look at their CSDR-MS system for starters. The empires never died, and now Emperor King Juan Carlos controls them all under the priesthood of Kronos, aka the Aragon Templars, aka the Jesuit order run by Adolfo Nicolas S.J., remembering Peter Hans Kolvenbach S.J.'s control in the Middle East turmoil as he did in times gone by, whilst Adolfo is more focused on the Far Eastern side of things. In truth, today it's the era of the two generals, not one, but this isn't meant to be known to the people, and Kolvenbach wants to slip into the darkness unseen after all my exposure from day one of him, making him one of the most talked about beings on the web in the conspiracy arena, and quickly after being so unnoticed for such a long time.